All right, let's move on to general check-ins. If you are on RF and would like to check in, please come now with your call sign, phonetically, your name, and where you're transmitting from.
This is November 5, Bravo, Bravo, Bill in Irving.
Is Kilo Charlie 5, Oscar Zulu Tango, Carolyn in Louisville.
Hello, 5, Juliet Delta Whiskey, John in Coppell. BBQ, Ray, Euless.
Kilo 5, Alpha November Papa, Alan in Dallas.
Says Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brenda in DeSoto.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Echo India Uniform, David, St. Paul, Texas.
This is Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray, Tom in Louisville.
Kilo 5, Papa Mike November, James Fort Worth.
Let me stop there for just a minute. I'm going to need some fills here. I have N5BB Bill, KC5 OZT Carolyn, K5 JDW John, and I guess Norman, Oklahoma kicked you out, so you're back in Coppell. And then I believe the next one is KF5 BBQ Ray. Is that correct? Please confirm that that's your correct call sign.
Ray and Euless.
I got Kilo 5 Alpha November Papa. Is that correct?
Correct. Kilo 5, Alpha November Papa, Alan in Dallas.
Thank you for that, Alan. And then I have WB5OZL Brenda, KG5EIU David, and KE5ICX Tom. And then the next person in Fort Worth, I could just barely hear you. I heard the Fort Worth part, and then that was all I got. If you could come back with your call sign slowly and phonetically and your name.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Papa Mike November, James Fort Worth.
Okay, I got KG5PMN James over in Fort Worth. Do we have any other general check-ins? We'll get to Echolink in just a moment. But any other general check-ins on RF, please come now with your call sign slowly and phonetically, your name, and where you're transmitting from.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Quebec Delta Quebec, Eric in Garland.
Kilo 8, Alpha Mike Hotel, Aaron in Louisville.
Let me pick up those two. I have KF5 QGQ Eric, long time no talk to, and Kilo 8 Alpha Mike Hotel Aaron over in Louisville. Welcome to the net, everybody. Let's move over to Echolink. If you're on Echolink and would like to check in, I think I only see one person over there who's not checked in so far. So if you would like to check in, please come now with your call sign, slowly and phonetically, your name, and where you're transmitting from. Either they don't have audio or they're being shy. Don't be shy. If you want to just check in via chat, you can do that as well. Just let me know. I'm looking at the chat right now. So let's do one more round of check-ins for any mode. If somebody would like to check in, please come now with your call sign slowly and phonetically, your name, and where you're transmitting from. All right, not hearing anything, so we will move on to announcements. Do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? They can be ham, astronomical, space, or of general interest to licensed hams. Please come now with your call sign.
Tango 5, Tango Mike.
Go ahead, Tony.
Thank you very much. This is an awesome net, but it's not our last net of the evening. We do have the Afterglow Movie discussion group coming up at 10:30 or so p.m. Tonight's movie is Aliens. Aliens, with an S-O-N from 1986. Watching it right now for about the 20th time, one of my all-time science fiction action movie favorites. I hope you can be there to talk about this movie with us tonight. But that is, of course, not the last net for the weekend. The Dallas Amateur Radio Club does have a meeting on the air tomorrow right here at 7, and a ham fixins net for recipes, cooking tips, and kitchen anecdotes on Monday at 7. So we're going to keep everything going for the next few days. And as Randy has been mentioning and reminding me, our field day is coming up. Last full weekend in June, the Dallas Amateur Radio Club is going to be at Flagpole Hill. Flagpole Hill, there was some concern we couldn't get the location. But Randy worked his tail off, and we have our location secure. If you'd like to offer your services to help get things set up, please email info@w5fc.org. So, next tonight, including especially Aliens at 10:30, meeting on the air tomorrow at 7, ham fixings Monday at 7, and Flagpole Hill Field Day coming up the last full weekend in June. Hope to hear you and see you. This is NT5TM.
Thank you for that, Tony. And yes, thanks to Randy for getting us the Flagpole Hill again for Field Day. I don't see him on Echolink, but somebody can pass along that. Thanks very much for doing that. Before I move on to the next few announcements, I wanted to check in with some of our, if we have any short-time people tonight who would like to, if they have any kind of announcements or would like to cover anything before they have to drop off. If so, please come now with your call sign. Not hearing any. So let's talk about AMSAT, radio amateur satellite operations, if you're interested in doing that sort of thing. By the way, my very first HF contact was on satellite radio, which is pretty cool. But the AMSAT group does have 2 nets available to Dallas residents. The first one is on Tuesday evenings at 8 o'clock p.m. Central Time. You will need Echolink installed and be registered. You can find the net under Groups and AMSAT. Also, a live audio link is available on their website at amsatnet.com. And this net originates in Houston, Texas. The Dallas AMSAT net is every Wednesday evening at 9 o'clock p.m. on the Arlington repeater, which is 147.140 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9 positive offset. Of course, as Tony mentioned, we do have a lot of nets going on, including the next couple of nights. And you can always go to W5FC.org and get all of the details about all of our nightly nets. We do have nets every single night of the week. All right, let's go on. Tony did mention the Afterglow information, but Tom, you always have such a great way of introducing the movie. So would you like to introduce the movie, KE5ICX?
Oh, thank you, Miss Kelley. You know, I lived for this 30-second ditty. So here it is, tonight's Afterglow movie. Welcome to Whalen Unitanai Corporation. You try and say that. As a new employee of the most exciting company in the galaxy, you'll be working with other WY employees, seeking out new life and new civilizations, while mining ore on mysterious old worlds, while your teammates are terraforming them into new worlds. Of course, as a new employee, you'll be obligated to participate in the 90-day probationary period where you'll be enrolled in Operation Face Hug. We love our employees. You'll be bursting with pride in a manner of days, earning the respect of fellow employees, exobiologists, and first responders. Remember to fill out the form below as to where to contact your next of kin and, because we love our employees, your custom-reported cause of death. We recommend selecting being gored to death by a happy unicorn. Join us for the next Afterglow movie, Aliens, from 1986 tonight at 10:30 p.m. That's Aliens from 1986, not Aliens, Aliens, as Tony mentioned. Back to net control. This is KE5ICX, Human Resources Manager.
Thank you for that, Tom. That was awesome. Okay, let's see if we've had any additional folks who have stumbled into this repeater and going, what the heck is going on here? If you would like to check into Skynet, please come now with your call sign, slowly and phonetically, your name and where you're transmitting from.
Golf 5, Victor, Julio, Papa, Robert, and Richardson.
Kilo Golf 5, Zulu Lima Mike, Hector, and Fort Worth.
Okay, the first check-in was KG5VJP Richard. Did I get that correct? It's a little bit been doing VE duties this afternoon, so I'm a little exhausted. So please come back and let me know if that's the correct call sign.
It's Robert. Excuse me. It's Robert and Richardson.
Okay, thank you for that, Robert. I thought it was Richardson, but I wasn't sure. Okay, and then KG5ZLM Hector over in Fort Worth. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening. And this is K5KTX4 Skynet. The next portion of our net is we're going to talk about the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas. And I want to tell you the monthly meetings are held on the fourth Friday of every month, except for November when they are on the third Friday due to Thanksgiving, and we usually don't have in December. All of the meetings are held at the University of Texas at Dallas campus in Richardson. The meeting begins at 7:30 p.m. in the Science Learning Center building, which is Sierra Lima Charlie on the campus map. The best place to park is in Lot H, where we've been given permission to park in orange, gold, or green painted spaces between 6:30 and 10:30 p.m. on meeting nights. You can park anywhere else as long as you choose a green space. Otherwise, you risk getting a ticket. The meeting includes programs presented by members or guest speakers and a slideshow of the current constellation of the month. coming up next week, which is on Friday, May the 25th. And again, the meeting begins at 7:30 p.m. At 7 o'clock p.m., they will have a new member orientation, which is pretty interesting, even if you're not a member. And then we alternate months at 7 p.m. We will have a beginner astronomy class. And in June, at the meeting, the topic is going to be shoestring astronomy, homemade astronomical instruments and accessories. And then in August, the topic for the beginner astronomy class will be selecting eyepieces to match your telescope specifications and personal observing objectives. So that should be a really good class. And then in October, the topic will be tips and techniques for observing. So again, those are at 7 p.m. before the main part of the meeting begins. I also wanted to mention that if you're interested in astrophotography, we have a group that meets on the first Tuesday of the month at Timber Glen Library in Carrollton, and they talk about software and hardware, and they share pictures, and it's a pretty neat meeting, first Tuesday at Timber Glen Library. This Astronomical Society also hosts observing parties every Saturday night, beginning at sunset and concluding around 10 p.m. or sometimes a little bit later, especially in the summertime when it doesn't get dark until almost 10 o'clock. Each week is a different location for observing, so make sure you get complete details for the Saturday night you wish to attend. Be sure to go to texasastro.org and click on the calendar tab at the top, and you can get details about all of our events that are coming up. By the way, all of our events are free and open to the public and very family friendly. So tonight is the third Saturday, so our star party is at J.W. Williams Park in Cedar Hill, and it was actually a go tonight. I wanted to just throw it out there for just a second. If there's anybody there at the star party in Cedar Hill who would like to talk about what you're seeing tonight, please come now with your call sign. I'm not hearing any, but that is a really nice location down on the southern part of the Metroplex. Then, coming up next week is the fourth Saturday, which is the Stars on the Rock at Lakeshore Park in Rockwall. Very nice, dark location. And then we're coming back up to the month of June, and first Saturday is at Spring Park in Garland. Second Saturday is at Frisco Common Park in Frisco, another really great location. Again, these are free and open to the public. Go to texasastro.org, and you can get all of the details for all of our events. Let's move on to National Space Society activities and announcements. So, Bill, in 5BB, what do you have for us this evening?
Oh, I was not prepared. This is in 5BB. Let me see if I can come up with anything real quick here. I apologize. Let's see. One moment. Actually, have nothing specific here. Hold on one second. I'm sorry. Okay, I'll report on the National Space Society meeting last Sunday, May the 13th. The meeting was in Irving at the Spring Creek Barbecue across the street from Irving Mall, Sunday afternoon starting at 3:30. The speaker was an expert on weightlessness, the effect of weightlessness in space in general, radiation, etc., on human body. And he is a visiting researcher at University of Texas Medical Center in Dallas, and had a very interesting presentation talking about some of the difficulties with radiation, going to Mars, etc., and low gravity affecting bones and other human health issues. That's all I have for now in 5EB.
Hi, thank you for that, Bill. This is K5KTX, and I also wanted to make sure that everybody gets this on your calendar. Moon Day 2018. The date is July the 21st, so it's coming up in just a couple of months here. And you definitely want to reserve this day and come out to the Frontiers of Flight Museum out by Love Field, because it is going to be a wonderful day. I've done this event for almost every year. Maybe I have done it every year, I can't remember. But this year, the keynote speaker is going to be astronaut Doug Wheelock, and he is a great, really fun person. I got to spend a whole day with him down at Johnson Space Center back in 2014, and he's a lot of fun, and he is a ham radio operator and has some really fun stories to tell about operating ham radio on the International Space Station. Another featured presentation will be Wally Funk, and you may be going, who is Wally Funk? Well, she was one of the original Mercury 13 candidates. This was a group of 13 women who went through all of the same training as the Mercury astronauts did, and so she will be there as well doing a presentation. So July the 21st at the Frontiers of Flight Museum at near Love Field. So be sure to go put that on your calendar, and we hope to see you there. So now we're going to jump into the topic for the evening, and for the last few months I've been doing a series on the key mission from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. And in just a couple of weeks, I'm actually going to be going to the Jet Propulsion Laboratory out in Pasadena, California, and volunteering as part of their open house that they have every year. This year is called Explore JPL. And I am a solar system ambassador for the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, so I'll be volunteering there, and really looking forward to making my first trip there. So for this month, I'm going to talk about the Magellan mission. In 1989 and 1990, NASA's Space Shuttle helped launch 3 JPL-managed solar system exploration missions, one of them being Magellan to Venus, Galileo to Jupiter, and Ulysses to study the sun's poles. Tonight, we are going to look at the first one. This mission was named for the 16th century Portuguese explorer whose mission first navigated the Earth by ocean. Magellan was the first planetary spacecraft to be launched by a space shuttle when it was carried aloft by the shuttle Atlantis from Kennedy Space Center in Florida on May the 4th, 1989. Atlantis took Magellan into low Earth orbit, where it was released from the shuttle's cargo bay. A solid fuel motor called the Inertial Upper Stage, or IUS, then fired, sending Magellan on a 15-month cruise, looping around the sun 1.5 times before it arrived at Venus on August the 10th, 1990. A solid fuel motor on Magellan then fired, placing the spacecraft in orbit around Venus. Magellan's initial orbit was highly elliptical, taking it as close as 182 miles from Venus and as far away as 5,296 miles. The orbit was a polar one, meaning that the spacecraft moved from south to north or vice versa during each looping pass, flying over Venus's north and south poles. Magellan completed one orbit every 3 hours, 15 minutes. During the part of its orbit closest to Venus, Magellan's radar mapper imaged a swath of the planet's surface approximately 10 to 17 miles wide. At the end of each orbit, the spacecraft radioed back to Earth a map of a long, ribbon-like strip of the planet's surface captured on that orbit. Venus itself rotates once every 243 Earth days. As the planet rotated under the spacecraft, Magellan collected strip after strip of radar image data, eventually covering the entire globe at the end of the 243-day orbital cycle. By the end of its first such 8-month orbital cycle between September 1990 and May 1991, Magellan had sent to Earth detailed images of 84% of Venus's surface. The spacecraft then conducted radar mapping on 2 more 8 cycles from May 1991 to September 1992. This allowed it to capture detailed maps of 98% of the planet's surface. The follow-on cycles also allowed scientists to look for any changes in the surface from one year to the next. In addition, because the look angle of the radar was slightly different from one cycle to the next, scientists could construct 3-dimensional views of Venus's surface. During Magellan's fourth 8-month orbital cycle at Venus from September 1992 to May 1993, the spacecraft collected data on the planet's gravity field. During this cycle, Magellan did not use its radar mapper, but instead transmitted a constant radio signal to Earth. If it passed over an area of Venus with higher than normal gravity, the spacecraft would slightly speed up in its orbit. This would cause the frequency of Magellan's radio signal to change very slightly due to the Doppler effect. Thanks to the ability of radio receivers in the Deep Space Network to measure frequencies extremely accurately, scientists could build up a detailed gravity map of Venus. At the end of Magellan's fourth orbital cycle in May 1993, flight controllers lowered the spacecraft's orbit using a then untried technique called aerobraking. This maneuver sent Magellan dipping into Venus's atmosphere once every orbit. The atmospheric drag on the spacecraft slowed down Magellan and lowered its orbit. After the aerobraking was completed between May 25th and August 3rd, 1993, Magellan's orbit then took it as close as 112 miles from Venus and as far away as 336 miles. Magellan also circled Venus more quickly, completing an orbit once every 94 minutes. This new, more circularized orbit allowed Magellan to collect better gravity data in the higher northern and southern latitudes near Venus's poles. After the end of that fifth orbital cycle in April 1994, Magellan began a sixth and final orbital cycle, collecting more gravity data and conducting radar and radio science experiments. By the end of the mission, Magellan captured high-resolution gravity data for about 95% of the planet's surface. In September 1994, Magellan was lowered once more in another test called a windmill experiment. In this test, the spacecraft's solar panels were turned to a configuration resembling the blades of a windmill, and Magellan's orbit was lowered into the thin outer reaches of Venus's dense atmosphere. Flight controllers then measured the amount of torque control required to maintain Magellan's orientation and keep it from spinning. This experiment gave scientists data on the behavior of molecules in Venus's upper atmosphere and lent engineers new information useful in designing spacecraft. October the 11th, 1994, Magellan's orbit was lowered a final time, causing the spacecraft to become caught in the atmosphere and plunge to the surface. Contact was lost the following day. This was the first time an operating planetary spacecraft has ever been intentionally crashed. The purpose of the maneuver was for Magellan to gather data on Venus's atmosphere before it ceased to function during its fiery descent. Although much of Magellan was believed to be vaporized, some sections probably hit the planet's surface intact. Now, a little bit about the spacecraft itself. Built partially with spare parts from other missions, the Magellan spacecraft was 15.4 feet long, topped with a 12-foot high gain antenna. Mated to its retro rocket and fully tanked with propellants, the spacecraft weighed a total of 7,612 pounds at launch. The high-gain antenna, used for both communication and radar imaging, was a spare from the Voyager mission. That was the one I finished up last month talking about. To the outer planets, as were Magellan's 10-sided main structure and a set of thrusters. The command data computer system, attitude control computer, and power distribution units were spares from the Galileo mission to Jupiter. Magellan's medium gain antenna was from the Mariner 9 project. Martin Marietta Corporation was the prime contractor for the Magellan spacecraft, while Hughes Aircraft Company was the prime contractor for the radar system. Magellan was powered by two square solar panels, each measuring 8.2 feet on a side. Together, they supplied 1,200 watts of power. Over the course of the mission, the solar panels gradually degraded as expected. By the end of the mission, in the fall of 1994, it was necessary to manage power usage carefully to keep the spacecraft operating. And this is K5KTX for Skynet. Because Venus is shrouded by a dense, opaque atmosphere, conventional optical cameras cannot be used to image its surface. Instead, Magellan's imaging radar used bursts of microwave energy, somewhat like a camera flash, to illuminate the planet's surface. Magellan's high-gain antenna sent out millions of pulses each second toward the planet. The antenna then collected the echoes returned to the spacecraft when the radar pulses bounced off of Venus's surface. The radar pulses were not sent directly downward, but rather at a slight angle to the side of the spacecraft. The radar was thus sometimes called side-looking radar. In addition, special processing techniques were used on the radar data to result in higher resolution, as if the radar had an antenna or aperture. The technique was often called synthetic aperture radar, or SAR. Synthetic aperture radar was first used by NASA on JPL's CSAT oceanographic satellite in 1978. It was later developed more extensively on the spaceborne imaging radar missions on the Space Shuttle in 1981, 84, and 1994. An imaging radar was also part of the Cassini mission to Saturn for mapping the surface of the ring planet's major moon, Titan. Its use in imaging, Magellan's radar system was also used to collect altimetry data showing the elevations of various surface features. In this mode, pulses were sent directly downward, and Magellan measured the time it took a radar pulse to reach Venus and return in order to determine the distance between the spacecraft and the planet. So here are some of the science results. Magellan returned maps of Venus's surface and its gravity field in unprecedented detail that will be a resource for many years for scientists studying the planet. The mission held many surprises for scientists and resulted in a number of theories about the planet being revised. From the craters visible in Magellan's Venus maps, scientists believe they are looking at a relatively young planetary surface, perhaps about 500 million years old. Since Venus formed at the same time as Earth 4.6 billion years ago, some event or events 500 million years ago must have resurfaced the planet. Scientists believe that this may have been the work of massive outpourings of lava from the planet-wide volcanic eruptions. Although Venus may still have active volcanoes, no visible outpourings of lava have yet been detected in comparisons of Magellan images between one 8-month orbital cycle and another. So some scientists speculate that Venus may have once been a temperate planet that fell victim to a runaway greenhouse effect, creating enormously high temperatures. Magellan's maps show no telltale signs of past major water bodies such as shorelines or ocean basins. Also, surface features show no evidence of being eroded by water, although there is evidence of wind erosion in the form of numerous sand dunes and wind streaks. One of the hopes that scientists had for Magellan was to find out if Venus, like Earth, has plate tectonics, movements of crustal masses that on Earth cause earthquakes and result in the drifting of continents over time periods of hundreds of millions of years. They, in fact, found no evidence of plate tectonics in the data returned by the mission. Scientists suspect, though, although Venus is very similar in size to Earth, its interior is probably different in major ways. In particular, Venus seems to lack an asthenosphere, a buffer layer within Earth between the outer part of the planet and the mantle beneath. As a result, the gravity signature of features on Venus closely reflects surface topography, whereas on Earth, such a correspondence does not always occur. Scientists are also intrigued by the distribution of volcanoes around Venus. On Earth, volcanoes occur in groups, such as the so-called Ring of Fire around the Pacific Rim. Venus, by contrast, is peppered with hundreds of thousands to millions of volcanoes distributed more or less randomly around the planet. Scientists were also surprised to see huge channels thousands of kilometers long on Venus. These appear to be lava channels and frequently show a fan of lava at their mouth. Pretty much it about Magellan. Next month I'll be talking about the Galileo mission to Jupiter. This is K5KTX. Do we have any additional check-ins for tonight's Skynet? If you would like to check in, please come now with your call sign, your name, and where you're transmitting from. Okay, so let's move on to what can you see in the sky over the next couple of weeks. And luckily we've had some somewhat fairly nice weather for the last couple of weeks. So Tom, KE5ICX, what do you have for us?
Kelley, and this is KE5ICX. I wish I could say that I'm the smart guy here. I'm not. This comes from earthsky.org/tonight. You can go there any night of the week and find out what's in the sky. So this is what we have. You can also go to W5FC.org and pick up the maps that are there so you can see what I'm talking about. We have a slide here, west Nightfall, and it says the following. On May 18th and 19th, you'll find the waxing crescent moon near Castor and Pollux, the two brightest stars in the constellation Gemini, the twins. The other bright star on the other side of the moon is Procyon, the brightest in the constellation Canis Minor, the lesser dog. Yes, I am the lesser person doing this. The queen planet Venus, which outshines all of the bright stars, beams lower down in the sky and close to the horizon at nightfall. Be sure to catch Venus as soon as darkness falls, because this dazzling world will sink below the horizon by early evening. Both Castor and Pollux are bright stars. They've been known as the twins for centuries at least, but they don't really look alike. Pollux is a golden color and Castor is pure white. If you have binoculars, they'll help you to more easily distinguish the color contrast between Castor and Pollux. Also, Castor and Pollux are different kinds of stars. Castor is a hot, white-colored star that is well known for being a multiple system. It consists of 3 pairs of binary stars, that is, 6 stars bound together in an intricate gravitational dance. Pollux is a cool and bloated orange-colored star said to be the closest giant star to Earth, a star that swells up into a giant in its old age. The moon passes in front of Gemini for first few days every month. The sun, on the other hand, passes in front of Gemini for 1 month each year from about June 21st to July 2nd. There's also a chart I've got up, a comparison between Pollux, Arcturus, Sirius, and our moon. It's a size comparison. And they continue. Castor and Pollux are extremely noticeable in the nighttime sky. No other two such bright stars appear so close together. Regardless of the seeming connection between these two stars, Castor and Pollux aren't close together in space. They just happen to reside along the same line of sight. In many cultures, Castor and Pollux are seen as twin stars, usually as heroes. Many old sky myths invoke the idea of twins to explain their proximity on the sky's dome. In Roman mythology, Castor and Pollux were the twin sons of Jupiter and Leda and brothers of Helen of Troy. They sailed with Jason and 2 of his Argonauts. Pollux, represented by the brightest star, is immortal, but his son Castor was not. When Castor was killed in a fight, Jupiter wanted the two to remain together, so he decreed that they each should spend some time in the underworld and some time in the heavens. This is a fanciful way of explaining why the constellation is above the horizon for part of each day and below the horizon for the rest. Castor and Pollux are sometimes said to represent brotherly love. Meanwhile, in China, these two stars were associated with water as part of the constellations representing rivers. They were sometimes also seen as complementary elements of yin and yang. So the bottom line is the moon is near the stars Castor and Pollux in the constellation Gemini, the twins, on May 18th and 19th of this year. These stars represent twins in many cultures. And this is KE5ICX. From the U.S. Naval Observatory, what you can see in the sky this week, this is what they have. Some of these things have passed, some have not. But at least you'll get an idea of what's been going on this week. The moon returns to the evening sky this week, waxing through her crescent phases towards the first quarter, which falls on the 21st at 11:49 Eastern. Look for the moon near brilliant Venus in the twilight of the evening of the 17th. She passes less than a degree north of the bright star Regulus on the evening of the 21st. Take advantage of the moon's northerly declination this week to explore her stark, barren landscapes. The nights around the first quarter phase are my favorites, he says, for lunar exploration with a telescope, and you can start enjoying the view long before the onset of astronomical darkness. No matter what size instrument you use, Luna never disappoints, showing off her smooth lava plains that bear the romanticized names of hypothetical seas and the rugged, battered terrain of her highlands. The vast lava plains are the remnants of collisions with large asteroids during the first billion years after the moon's formation. The huge craters carved by these impacts gradually filled with lava to form these relatively smooth areas. The last of these great impacts occurred about 3.5 million years ago, so any features that you may see here are considered to be young by lunar standards. The brighter terrain bears testament to the violence of the early solar system's formation. Impacts of countless planetesimals have left the landscape of shoulder-to-shoulder craters ranging in size from 100 kilometers to pits at the limit of terrestrial resolution, a few hundred meters across. To perhaps convey a sense of scale, the famous Meteor crater in Arizona, which is very impressive to look at standing on its rim, would be invisible to all but the largest terrestrial telescopes at the moon's distance. The typical lunar crater seen through a small telescope spans a distance across its rim that's comparable to the distance between Washington, D.C. and Baltimore. Of all my favorite formations in this crater is Theophilus, which is well placed west of the crater of the Terminator line on the evening of the 20th. It is large, over 100 kilometers across, has a prominent central peak, and looks fresh, overlaying a similar-sized crater named Sirius. Indeed, it is one of the more recently excavated impact craters, but with no air or water on the moon to promote erosion, its formation probably occurred over 1 billion years ago, around the time that the first multi-celled organisms appeared on Earth. There's a handful of other craters of somewhat more recent date, but the era of large impactors in our neck of the solar system has waned. The last large one we know of on Earth occurred some 60 million years ago. We go on. The first half of the week often offers changes to glimpse the distant galaxies of Virgo cluster before scattered light from the moon overwhelms their distant glows. These distant collections of billions of stars remain visible most of the overnight hours, but by early morning, the summer Milky Way begins to rise in the east. By 3 a.m., the stars of the summer constellation of Scorpius cross the meridian to the south, and the bright stars of the summer triangle are ascending to the east. Now on to the planets. Venus continues to move eastward through the setting winter constellation. She will continue to set around 45 minutes after the end of evening twilight. She will maintain a nearly constant separation from the sun for the next couple of months before gradually beginning to fall back toward the horizon by late July. Jupiter continues to become better placed in the evening sky, as well as up in the southeast by 10 p.m. This prime observing time for the giant planet, which will dominate the evenings until late summer. All four of his Galilean moons will be near their greatest dimensions on the night of the 18th. Saturn now rises before midnight, along with the stars of the teapot asterism Sagittarius. The ring planet is still best seen in the early morning hours, crossing the meridian low in the at around 4 a.m. And then finally, Mars continues to brighten as he drifts eastward into the faint stars of Capricornus. He starts the week in the same telescopic field as a small globular cluster, Messier 75, which you'll need to spot before the beginning of the astronomical twilight. Otherwise, the best time to give Mars a telescopic gander is around 5 a.m. As morning twilight begins to creep into the eastern sky. And with that, Ms. Kelley, I'll send the net back to you. This is KE5ICX.
Thank you, Tom. This is K5KTX, and you've not seen anything until you see Mars and Jupiter in a 36-inch telescope at the top of one of the tallest mountains in Texas at the McDonald Observatory. It's pretty cool. I even got to see Pluto a couple of weeks ago. All right, let's move on to our featured constellation of the night. Before Carolyn does her presentation, be sure to go to W5FC.org, where there are sky maps and notes and images so that you can follow along. So Carolyn, KC5OZT, the net is yours.
This is KC5OZT, and tonight we're going to look at the constellation Bootes. That's a Greek word that means ox driver, plowman, or herdsman. And the correct pronunciation is Bootes, with each O pronounced separately and the accent on the second syllable. It was first cataloged by Ptolemy in the 2nd century. And this constellation is home to Arcturus, the third individual brightest star in the night sky after Sirius and Canopus. And Bootes is the 13th largest constellation in the night sky. This constellation is traditionally depicted as a herdsman with 2 hunting dogs on a leash. That was Canis Venatici that we looked at the other week, a week or two ago. And a club in his other hand. In the sky, he follows Ursa Major around the pole. In one story, he represents a plowman driving the oxen in Ursa Major, followed by his 2 dogs. And the plowman's oxen are tied to the polar axis, and their movement keeps the skies in constant rotation. And that's one story, but more commonly, Bootes is taken to represent Arcturus, son of Zeus and Callisto. He was brought up by his grandfather, the king, who one day decided to test Zeus by serving him his own son for a meal. Zeus, however, saw through this and transformed the cruel king into a wolf and brought Arcturus back to life. Zeus's wife, Hera, having heard of her husband's infidelity, transformed Callisto into a bear. This bear roamed the woods, and later she met her son, who had now grown up, and Arcturus didn't recognize his mother, and began to chase her. And Callisto hid herself in a temple where he couldn't hurt her. So finally, to avoid a tragedy, Zeus placed both of them in the sky. Callisto as Ursa Major, and Arcturus as Bootes. And I might say it's a pun, but it's the star of Bootes is Arcturus, the third brightest star in the sky, and actually the brightest star in the northern hemisphere, magnitude negative 0.04. It's sometimes listed as the fourth brightest star because behind Alpha Centauri, because that star has a binary star with a combined magnitude of negative 0.2. But Arcturus is the third individual brightest star in the night sky. And of course, his name, Arcturus, means guardian of the bear in ancient Greek. It's located at the left foot of the herdsman, and you notice that's the foot standing next to the bear constellations, Ursa Major and Minor. Arcturus is a type K orange giant, and it has an unusual spectrum of light full of emission lines. It's about 36.7 light years away, and it has a very high proper motion. It moves 122 kilometers a second relative to the solar system. It will actually arrive at the point nearest to the sun in about 4,000 years. And Arcturus lies on the celestial equator and can easily be found by the famous Follow the Arc of the three bright stars, the handle of the Big Dipper, to Arcturus. And then on to Spica, we've covered that before. But it's hard to mistake. It is a member of the local interstellar cloud, known as the local fluff. I didn't make that up. It's a cloud through which the solar system are moving. Arcturus is believed to be an old disk star, and it appears to be traveling with a group of 52 other old disk stars, and this is called the Arcturus Stream. And then we also have another interesting star, Beta Bootes, a yellow G-type giant, 219 light years from Earth. And it is one of the flare stars we mentioned. It's worth keeping an eye on. Remember, a flare star, it can show a dramatic increase in velocity for a few minutes. I've seen a few of these, and that's very interesting to watch. Then we have Tau, which is a binary star about 51 light years from Earth. It's a yellow-white dwarf and a dim red dwarf. And the primary star has an extrasolar planet, discovered in 1996. And Tau made astronomical history in 2007. In that year, an international team of astronomers from France caught the star flipping its north and south magnetic poles. These astronomers had been mapping the magnetic fields of stars, and it was the first time a magnetic reversal had been observed in any star other than our sun. Watching it, and it appears this star does this in periods of about 2 years. So that's very valuable in research. Moving on to deep sky objects, and one, oddly enough, is called the Bootes void, also known as the Great Void or the Super Void. It's a spear-shaped region of the sky, about 250 million light years in diameter, with very few galaxies. And this was originally discovered by Robert of Harvard in 1981. By now it's known that there are at least 60 galaxies in this void. And an American astronomer, Gregory Alderling, once observed if the Milky Way had been in the center of this Bootes void, we wouldn't have known there were other galaxies until the 1960s. But Bootes does have a couple of objects. One is the Dwarf galaxy, or Bootes 1. It's a dwarf spheroidal galaxy located about 197,000 light years away. It's one of the faintest galaxies known, but it does have an absolute magnitude of -5.8. But it only appears as magnitude 13.1. It wasn't discovered until 2006. Orbits the Milky Way, and because of its distorted shape, they believe it's being tidally disrupted by the Milky Way. And then we also have a nice globular cluster, NGC 5466. It was first discovered by William Herschel in 1784. It's about 52,800 light years from the galactic center, and is believed to be the source of a star stream called, I don't know why, it's called the 45-degree tidal stream, discovered in 2006. But the cluster is notable because it contains a blue horizontal branch of stars, yet it's as metal poor as the regular globular clusters. But anyway, Bootes may not have a lot of deep sky objects, but it's got some pretty fascinating stars and some that are really helping advance astronomical research. So take a tour through it, and I think you'll like it. Unless there's any questions, Kelley, I'll turn it back to you. KC50ZT.
Chemical 5, Papa, comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
On the constellations, and especially Bootes, Dennis Webb, who's a regular at the Texas Star Party, has published another volume of his book, Annals of the Night Sky, and Bootes takes up the entire chapter. I've got 5 of the volumes already, and he's only up to the constellations that begin with C. But I guess he's got, I don't have the book in front of me, but he's got about 40 or 50 pages alone just on Bootes, as he does on every constellation. They're available from WillBell.com. That's the publisher. But for the Texas Star Party, Dennis Webb is also there, usually autographs, and when I've got the autograph set. But excellent set of books. If you want to get a lot more detail than what Carolyn gives you in the time she has, is get a hold of those books, The Annals of the Night Sky by Dennis Webb. It's KG5P.
Well, thank you for that information. Does sound fascinating. KC5OZT.
Thank you, Carolyn, and thank you, Mike, for that information. And the Annals of the Deep Sky that Dennis Webb, that he was just talking about, it's kind of if you're familiar with Burnham's Celestial Handbook, which was, an older set of books, this is kind of like an updated version, a lot more in depth, and they are very good books if you're looking for some observing handbooks. All right, let's see if we have anybody else who would like to join us tonight. If you would like to check in tonight, please come now with your call sign, your name, and where you're transmitting from.
This is Bravo, number 4, Mike, Foxtrot, India, WB4, MFI, Ted, Dallas, long time.
This is AI6LZQ, Michael.
Nancy Lima. The name is Price, and I'm just south of DFW Airport.
KG5 TNF Mobile.
Okay, let me get those real quick. We have WB4 MFI Ted, who's in it for the long term. Thank you, Ted. And then the next person, I got Michael, and I heard a kilo and a 6, and that was about all that I got. Could you please come back with your sign phonetically and where you're transmitting from?
India 6, Lima, Zulu, Quebec. I'm in North.
Hi, I think I got it this time. KI6LZZQ and Michael, and then I've got K5NNL Price and KG5 TNF Johnny. Welcome to the net. Let's move on to recent astronomical discoveries. Brenda, WB5OZL, what do you have for us tonight?
This is WB5OZL. First article is entitled Fast Ionized Hydrogen Cloud in the Whirlpool Galaxy Revealed by Ultra-Sensitive Telescope. Astronomers have been keenly peering into M51, or the Whirlpool galaxy, since the 1800s, its signature spiral structure informing the earliest debates over the nature of galaxies and the cosmos at large. But no one, not with the naked eye or with increasingly powerful modern telescopes, has ever seen what Case Western Reserve University astronomers first observed during a refurbished 75-year-old telescope, using a refurbished 75-year-old telescope in the mountains of southwest Arizona. I literally looked at the image and said, "What in the world is that?" said Case Western Reserve astronomer Professor Chris Mijos. What it turned out to be a massive cloud of ionized hydrogen gas spewed from a nearby galaxy and then essentially cooked by radiation from the galaxy's central black hole. Mijos and a trio of collaborators led by then graduate student Aaron Watkins, and including Case Western Reserve Observatory manager Paul Harding and University of Wisconsin astronomer Matthew Burchady, wrote about the discovery this month in the journal, the Astrophysical Journal Letters. The discovery of the giant glass cloud, first observed by Watkins in 2015 and announced by Mijos on Twitter in April, potentially provides astronomers around the world with an unexpected front row seat to view the behavior of a black hole and associated galaxy as it consumes and recycles hydrogen gas. We know a few clouds like this in distant galaxies, but not in one so close to us, Mijos said. This gives astronomers a great opportunity to study up close how gas is ejected from galaxies and how black holes can influence large regions of space around those galaxies. But how did Case Western Reserve scientists find something others had missed? In part because they looked in the right spot with the right equipment and then enlisted the help of a colleague to confirm it with additional data. There were 24 research telescopes at Kitt Peak National Observatory, including the National Optical Astronomy Observatory and National Solar Observatory, pointed at the dark skies 60 miles southwest of Tucson. Although smaller and older than most telescopes on Kitt Peak, the Case Western Reserve Telescope is also constructed in a way to provide a wide field of view while also keeping out unwanted stray light. This allows astronomers to see things others don't. Diffuse patches of light that are over 100 times fainter than the blackest night sky you can imagine. What our telescope really does well is measure that very diffuse, low surface brightness light emitted by gas or stars around a galaxy, Mijos said. It is a wonderful telescope and has allowed us to make world-class advances in studying the faint outskirts of galaxies. Mijos said Watkins, now doing his postdoctoral work in Finland, had originally been imaging the Whirlpool to map the faint streamers of starlight torn off by the collision between the galaxies. Thinking there might also be gas in these streamers, the team fitted the telescope with a special filter to see hot ionized hydrogen gas, which gives off specific wavelength of light. Finding stars is relatively straightforward, but gas doesn't shine at all wavelengths, Mijos said. That's one of several reasons why no one has ever seen this before. Earlier studies using these kind of hydrogen filters to look for ionized gas couldn't detect emission this faint and over such a wide area around the cool to see what Aaron found. But there was one thing to double check. Our worry was really what I would call the dirty windshield analogy. What if we were actually seeing a diffuse cloud of gas right in front of us in our galaxy and it wasn't really part of M51, Mijos said. We could figure that out if we knew how fast it was moving. Does it move slow like clouds in the Milky Way or much faster like those in M51? The CWRU astronomers teamed up with the University of Wisconsin astronomer Matthew Burchady to use some nearby WY WIYN Observatory to confirm the cloud's association with M51. The WIYN 3.5-meter telescope was equipped with an instrument capable of taking a detailed spectrum of the cloud to measure its speed. What we needed to know whether that cloud was moving at Milky Way speed or M51 speed, Miho said. Once Aaron and Matt had taken the spectrum of the cloud, they were able to tell how fast it was moving away from us, and we immediately knew it was part of M51, not something in our own backyard. His role in more clearly understanding how galaxies eject and recycle their gas and stars, Miho said, will be determined in the coming years as more researchers dig into information that had been there all along, even if unseen until now. We need a lot more data to tell this tale fully, for sure, and this is one of those most well-studied galaxies out there, so we have a chance to better understand what is happening in the Whirlpool, which informs and affects how we understand everything else about how it has evolved over time. Okay, the next article is entitled Evidence for Stars Forming Just 250 Million Years After the Big Bang. An international team of astronomers used ALMA to observe a distant galaxy called MACS 1149-JD1. They detected a very faint glow emitted by ionized oxygen in the galaxy. As this infrared light traveled across space, the expansion of the universe stretched it to wavelengths more than 10 times longer by the time it reached Earth and was detected by ALMA. The team inferred that the signal was emitted 13.3 billion years ago, or 500 million years after the Big Bang, making it the most distant oxygen ever detected by any telescope. The presence of oxygen is a clear sign that there must have been earlier generations of stars in this galaxy. I was thrilled to see the signal of the distant oxygen in the ALMA data, says Takuya Hashimoto, the lead author of the new paper and a researcher at both Osaka Sangyo University and the National Astronomical Observatory of Japan. This detection pushes back the frontiers of the observable universe. In addition to the glow from oxygen picked up by ALMA, a weaker signal of hydrogen emission was also detected by ESO's Very Large Telescope. The distance to the galaxy determined from this observation is consistent with the distance from the oxygen observation. This makes MACS 1149-JD1 the most distant galaxy with a precise distance measurement, and the most distant galaxy ever observed with ALMA are the VLT. This galaxy is seen at a time when the universe was only 500 million years old, and yet it already has a population of mature stars, explains Nicholas Laporte, a researcher at University College London in the UK, and second author of the new paper. We're therefore able to use this galaxy to probe into an earlier, completely uncharted period of cosmic history. Period after the Big Bang, there was no oxygen in the universe. It was created by the fusion processes of the first stars and then released when these stars died. The detection of oxygen indicates that these earlier generations of stars had been already formed and expelled hydrogen by just 500 million years after the beginning of the universe. But when did this star formation, I lost my place, occur? To find out, the team reconstructed the earlier history of MACS 1149-JD1 using infrared data taken from the NASA ESA Hubble Space Telescope and the NASA Spitzer Space Telescope. They found that the observed brightness of the galaxy is well explained by a model where the onset of star formation corresponds to only 250 million years after the universe began. The maturity of the stars is seen raises the question of when the very first galaxies emerged from total darkness, an epic astronomers romantically term cosmic dawn. Establishing the age of MACS 1149-JE1, the team has effectively demonstrated that galaxies existed earlier than those that we can currently detect. All right, that is it. Back to Nat. This is WB5OZL.
Thank you for that, Brenda. This is K5KTX, and we're going to move on because we're starting to run a little bit low on time. We're going to move on to space exploration and history. So last week, I mentioned some new discoveries from old Galileo data when the spacecraft flew by Jupiter's moon, Ganymede. A new article this week talks about new evidence from Galileo for plumes on Europa, which is another moon of Jupiter. Scientists re-examining data are bringing new insights to the tantalizing question of whether Jupiter's moon, Europa, has the ingredients to support life. The data provide independent evidence that the moon's subsurface liquid water reservoir may be venting plumes of water vapor above its icy shell. Collected by NASA's Galileo spacecraft in 1997 were put through new and advanced computer models to untangle a mystery, a brief, localized bend in the magnetic field that had gone unexplained until now. Previous ultraviolet images from NASA's Hubble Space Telescope in 2012 suggested the presence of plumes, but this new analysis used data collected much closer to the source and is considered strong corroborating support for plumes. The findings appear in Monday's issue of the journal Nature Astronomy. The research was led by Xian Ji, a space physicist at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor and lead author of the journal article. Jia also is co-investigator for two instruments that will travel aboard the Europa Clipper, NASA's upcoming mission to explore the moon's potential habitability. The data were there, but we needed sophisticated modeling to make sense of the observation, Jia said. Team was inspired to dive back into the Galileo data by Melissa McGrath of the SETI Institute in Mountain View, California. A member of the Europa Clipper science team, McGrath delivered a presentation to fellow team scientists highlighting other Hubble observations of Europa. One of the locations she mentioned rang a bell. Galileo actually did a flyby of that location, and it was the closest one we ever had. We realized we had to go back, Gia said. We needed to see whether there was anything in the data that could tell us whether or not there was a plume. Of the 1997 flyby, about 124 miles above Europa's surface, the Galileo team didn't suspect the spacecraft might be grazing a plume erupting from the icy moon. Now, Gia and his team believe its path was fortuitous. When they examined the information gathered during that flyby 21 years ago, sure enough, high-resolution magnetometer data showed something strange. Drawing on what scientists learned from exploring plumes on Saturn's moon Enceladus, that material in plumes becomes ionized and leaves a characteristic blip in the magnetic field. They knew what to look for. And there it was on Europa, a brief localized bend in this magnetic field that had never been explained. Galileo carried a powerful plasma wave spectrometer to measure plasma waves caused by charged particles and gases around Europa's atmosphere. Gia's team pulled that data as well, and it also appeared to back the theory of a plume. But numbers alone couldn't paint the whole picture. Gia layered the magnetometry and plasma wave signatures into new 3D modeling developed by his team at the University of Michigan, which simulated the interactions of plasma with solar system bodies. The final ingredient was the data from Hubble that suggested dimensions of potential plumes. The result that emerged with the simulated plume was a match to the magnetic field and plasma signatures the team pulled from the Galileo data. findings are good news for the Europa Clipper mission, which may launch as early as June 2022. From its orbit of Jupiter, Europa Clipper will sail close by the Moon in rapid, low-altitude flybys. If plumes are indeed spewing vapor from Europa's ocean or subsurface lakes, Europa Clipper could sample the frozen liquid and dust particles. The mission team is gearing up now to look at potential orbital paths, and the new research will play into those discussions. And in space history for this past week, back on May the 14th, 1973, the uncrewed Skylab 1 space station launched aboard a Saturn V rocket. It was the last Saturn V ever launched. 63 seconds after liftoff, the meteoroid shield tore loose. This caused a cascade of damage to the thermal protection layers and the solar panels that were supposed to provide electrical power. When Skylab reached orbit, it started to overheat and couldn't generate the power needed for the mission. In the next 10 days, NASA personnel worked to keep the station alive while a rescue plan was put together and equipped. The first Skylab crew, Pete Conrad, Paul Weitz, and Joe Kerwin, had to do things that no one had ever planned, including adding a sun shield to the space station and opening a jammed solar panel. They launched on May the 25th, and that mission saved the Skylab program. May the 15th, 1963, Mercury Atlas 9, or Faith 7, launched. This flight by Gordo Cooper, first U.S. space flight that lasted longer than 24 hours. It was also the last flight of Project Mercury, and therefore the last time that a U.S. astronaut launched solo. Cooper's second and last space flight was as commander of Gemini 5 with Pete Conrad in 1965. There had been some discussion about flying a Mercury Atlas 10 mission. Alan Shepard personally lobbied President Kennedy for approval to fly that mission, but the president deferred to the judgment of NASA leadership. Administrator Jim Webb said that it was time to move ahead with Project Gemini. Shepard was grounded for a medical issue shortly afterward and will not fly in space again until 1971, when he commanded Apollo 14, the third mission to land on the Moon. May 16, 2011, Space Shuttle Endeavour launched on her last space flight, SDS-134. The 16-day mission delivered the Alpha Magnetic Spectrometer and other spare parts to the International Space Station. Coincidentally, 19 years earlier, Endeavour's first mission, or STS-49, landed on the same day, May 16, 1992. Now retired, the orbiter is on display at the California Science Center in Los Angeles. On May 18, 1969, Apollo 10 launched. The crew's mission was to fly the complete profile of a moon landing mission without actually touching down on the moon. That goal was, of course, achieved on the next mission, Apollo 11. Apollo 10 was only the second human spacecraft to orbit the moon and the first to travel to the moon with a lunar module. While orbiting the moon on May 22, 1969, astronauts Tom Stafford and Gene Cernan descended inside the lunar module, call sign Snoopy, to within nearly 9 miles of the lunar surface. Meanwhile, astronaut John Young flew the command module, call sign Charlie Brown, awaiting the return of his crewmates. Having successfully tested the full lunar landing profile, the crew of Apollo 10 returned to Earth, splashing down on May 26, 1969. I think we're probably out of time to do any kind of visible satellite passages over the next couple of days. So if you can always get this information from the heavens-above.com website. That's heavens with an S -above.com, and you can put in your location, and you can find out about all of the visible satellites that will pass over your location. And it's a lot of fun to do that. Go ahead and close this out. So do we have any final check-ins before we wrap this up? If so, please come now with your call sign phonetically, your name, and where you're transmitting from.
BB, I have some news I forgot to say earlier.
Go ahead, Bill.
Okay, this is local news. The Irving Repeater 146.72, which is used as a backup for the 88 repeater for the traffic net and occasionally for other purposes. All Irving repeaters will be off the air pretty much all day Monday and Tuesday this coming week. So starting at 8 a.m. on Monday and ending as late as 8 p.m. on Tuesday, all Irving repeaters, 146.72 and the other ones, will be down for maintenance. Just a general note. Thank you. In 5EB, that's all.
Thank you for that, Bill. That's good information. Okay, so let's go ahead and close it out tonight. We had 22 hams participating on the air. Thank you to all who checked in this evening. We hope you'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We are always looking for net control stations for this and all the other DARC nets. If you would like to try your hand at this, contact any of the net controls by sending an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics and discussion about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and Twitter, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to w5fc.org at the conclusion of this net. So until next Saturday night, this is K5KTX Kelley, and I'll be net at 22:31 local time and returning the repeater to normal amateur use. 73, everybody, and enjoy the evening discovering the universe. And don't forget, coming up in just a few minutes, the Afterglow net. This is K5KTX, and I'm clear.
Thank you, Miss Kelley. And yes, the Afterglow Movie net will begin here in exactly 5 minutes. So go refresh and come back here, and we'll be discussing tonight's movie, Aliens from 1986. Back in 5, KE5ICX. Right, it is time for the Afterglow Movie Net. This is where we discuss really bad, not so bad, and actually good science fiction films of the ages, or actually aged, or something like that. This is a net, yes, we're going to call it a net, but it is a discussion about these things. Tonight's movie is Aliens from 1986. So I want to let everybody know, if you're listening in, anybody can participate. We have the usual regulars here and the irregulars. But you can go ahead and sign up if you are on Facebook. You like Facebook, you can go to Afterglow Movie, that's 2 words, Afterglow, and the second word is movie, and say you would like to be a member of that group. Or if you are Facebook shy, and who isn't these days, you can send me, Tom, KE5ICX, Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-ray, at yahoo.com. Just let me know that you are interested in being a part of the movie list, and I'll send you all the information I have on weekly movies that we review and discuss and kill, usually. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and give you a brief synopsis of Aliens from 1986, and then I will take check-ins. Let me reset. The reason why we have the Facebook and the email accounts is so that you know ahead of time what movie to watch. Well, if you're listening in, you don't have to be shy if you've never checked in on this net. If you did not see the movie this week, maybe you saw it 20 years ago or 30 years ago, that's okay. You can talk about it to your best ability. If it's something you didn't see, that's okay too. You want to talk about aliens, alien invasions, all the fun things that go with creatures from on, you can join in on this conversation. We will customize it for your time during the net. So, I'm going to go ahead and give you the analysis of the net, and then we'll take check-ins. So here we go. Aliens, by the way, this is KE5ICX. Aliens is a 1986 American science fiction action film written and directed by James Cameron, produced by Gail Allen and Hurd, and starring Sigourney Weaver as Anne Ripley. I know it's not even here. Everybody thinks it's just Ripley. It's Anne Ripley. It is the sequel to the 1979 Alien, and the second installment in the Alien franchise. The film follows Weaver's character Ellen Ripley as she returns to the moon, where her crew encountered the hostile alien creature, this time accompanied by a unit of Space Marines. A bunch of people also played roles in this thing. I won't mention any of them, in fact, except for Bill Paxton, who was really cool, who produced, let's see, Gordon Carroll, a bunch of other people who produced the first film and later sequels, served as executive producers on Aliens. They were interested in a follow-up to the Alien as soon as the 1979 release, but the new management at 20th Century Fox postponed those plans until 1983. Brandywine picked up Cameron to write after reading a script for The Terminator, when that film became a hit in 1984. Fox greenlit Aliens with Cameron as director, and the budget of approximately $18 million, not billion, $18 million. It was filmed in England at Pinewood Studios. This is the cool part. Aliens was released on July 18th, 1986, and grossed over $180 million worldwide, or 10 times what it cost. It was nominated for 7 Academy Awards, including Best Actress nomination for Sigourney Weaver, winning both sound effects, editing, visual effects, won 8 Saturn Awards, both for Best Science Fiction Film and Best Actress for Weaver, Best Supporting Actor for Paxton, Best Supporting Actress for Goldstein, and Best Direction and Best Writing by Cameron, and a Hugo Award for Best Dramatic Presentation. Sounds pretty good so far. Empire Magazine voted it the greatest film sequel of all time. Aliens was the 7th highest grossing film of 1986. I keep thinking about this for a minute. Here is the plot. I'm only going to give you the first couple of paragraphs here. Ellen Ripley has been in stasis in a shuttle for 57 years. She is rescued and debriefed by her employees at Weyland-Yutani Corporation. They're skeptical over claims that an alien creature killed her entire crew and forced her to destroy her ship, the Nostromo, and they subsequently revoke her flight officer license. The exo-moon LV-426, where Nostromo initially encountered the derelict ship containing alien eggs, is now home to the terraforming colony Hadley's group. When contact is lost with the colony, Weyland-Yutani Representative Carter Burke and the Colonial Marine Lieutenant Gorman asked Ripley to accompany Burke and the Colonial Marine unit to investigate the disturbance. Despite suffering from recurring nightmares about her original experience with the alien, she eventually joins the expedition on Burke's word that their mission is to exterminate the creatures. Yeah, right. Aboard the spaceship USS Sulaco, she is introduced to the Colonial Marines and the android Bishop, toward whom Ripley is initially hostile toward her experience, following her experience with the treacherous android Ash aboard the Nostromo. The ship delivers the expedition to the surface of LV-426, where they find the colony deserted. Inside, they find makeshift barricades and signs of the struggle, but no bodies. 2 live facehuggers and containment tanks in the medical lab, and a traumatized young girl nicknamed Newt, the sole survivor, who used the extensive ventilation system, who doesn't, to evade the aliens. The crew uses the colony's computer to locate the colonist group beneath the fusion-powered atmosphere processing station. They head to the location, descending into corridors covered in alien secretions. And I'm going to stop there. This is KE5ICX Hubby Net Control for tonight's, what are we doing? Afterglow Movie Net. Tonight's movie is Aliens, with a plural, with an S at the end, which was another movie. I'll go ahead and take Willpower Short Time. If you want to join us this evening, please come now with your call sign, your name, where you're transmitting from. Willpower Short Time, please come now.
Number Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony, portable and East Dallas.
And I made my usual mistake. Did you see the movie Tony?
Over and over and over. Yes, we have seen the movie. NT5 PM.
No, I asked if you'd seen the movie named Tony, but that's okay. I assume you did see Aliens. I'll go ahead and take general check-ins. RF, please come now. With your call sign, your name. You can tell me where you're transmitting from. Let me know if you saw the movie Aliens. Please come now.
Is Kilo Foxtrot 5, Quebec Delta, Quebec. Eric and Garland, and they mostly come out at night. Mostly.
Golf 5, Mike Delta Sierra, Daryl in Capel. I have seen the movie. First time to participate in Afterglow, although I've done simulated.
BB5OZL, Brendan DeSoto, and I did see this movie.
Kilo Kilo Charlie 5, Oscar Zulu Tango, Carolyn in Louisville, and I have seen the movie.
Ooh, it's quiet out there, but I got a few. KFI QDQ, Eric, and you didn't say if you saw the movie. They said they come out at night. I know you've seen this movie, but tell me you did.
Well, considering that's one of Newt's most famous quotes, yes, I have seen the movie KF5 QDQ.
All right, excellent. I assume so. I just needed to know. Okay, and welcome back. KG5MDS, Bill, first time participating in the movie except in this simulation. You've seen the movie. Welcome. WB5OZL, Miss Brenda. She says, yeah, she saw the movie. KC5OZT, Miss Carolyn. Over in Louisville, yeah, she says she saw the movie. Additional check-ins, RF, and then I'm going to go to Echolink afterwards. RF only, come now.
Kilo 8 Alpha Mike Hotel, Aaron in Louisville. Yes, I saw the movie.
Okay, K8AMH, Aaron, Louisville, got a affirmative on that. I'm going to Echolink now, but you guys be ready because the Echolink folks will go first in the stream of things when we start asking questions. So I'll take Echolink now. Please come now with your call sign, your name. Let me know where you're transmitting from, if I write it down fast enough, and then let me know if you saw the movie. Echolink only, please come now.
This is Kilo Foxtrot 5, Papa Delta Sierra, Billy in Sherman, and I saw the movie when it came out, but I did not get to see it this week, so I'll do the best I can. KFI PBS.
Kilo Golf 5, Zulu Lima Mike, Hector in Fort Worth, and I did see the movie.
Very good. We'll take additional check-ins here in a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and recognize the two Echolinks, KFI PDS, Miss Billy over in Sherman. She's an affirmative. KG5ZLM, Hector in Fort Worth. He is an affirmative. Now, I understand that one of the two of you have not seen this movie recently. That's okay. Go by memory. That's really cool. Now, because I put you on the spot, we kind of alternate between the Echolink folks and RF. We're going to go ahead and put the Echolink folks up on top because usually they have to wait hours and hours to talk about anything on any net because we never ask for them first. So I'm going to start with KF5 PDS, Miss Billy in Sherman. I know it's been a while since you've seen the film, but what did you think of the plot? Was this thing good? Was it bad? Did it measure up to Alien as opposed to Aliens, which we saw tonight? KF5 PDS, Miss Billy, your opinions of the movie and the plot. Please go ahead.
Well, good evening, Tom, and everyone on the net. I think this is one of the nice instances where the sequel is as good or in some ways better than the original. I'd say it definitely measures up to Alien Singular. But that movie, the first one, is hard to pull off because it's only a cast of 7 in the same spaceship. So that, to me, it was like a long one-act play, which is in its own right a hard thing to pull off. But it had very strong characters. This, you get to expand. I liked the plot. I thought there were lots of instances where it was a lot scarier because you had the old base to explore, and there were lots of hidey holes and hiding places for the aliens, and there were a lot more opportunities to build suspense, especially with the full-grown aliens, and seeing them. I think, if memory serves, this is the first time we really get a good look at the alien itself grown up, and it is truly frightening. H.R. Giger's designs really come to life in this movie, and it is a very nightmarish thing. So, yeah, in a lot of ways, in that respect, I think it's better effects-wise, but we'll talk about effects later. But I thought the plot moved well from what I remember. There was a lot more opportunities to explore character and situation in this film. So, on the whole, I really like the film. I think it's just as good and in some ways better than the original. So, with that, I will let someone else have a turn. So this is KF5PDS, back to net.
Good, thank you, Miss Billy. This is KE5ICX Net Control for tonight's Afterglow Movie Net. We're talking about aliens. So next up is Hector, KG5ZLM. Hector, what did you think about the plot on this film?
I really liked this movie. I don't think it was as good as the original, but I think it sets me apart. I'm kind of a fanboy of the Aliens plot, of the Aliens movie. But I really like the plot. I think it stayed true to the original. It delved more into the universe of the aliens, to who they are, how they work. I really liked it. It's entertaining. I think it has depth to it, right? I mean, obviously with all the sequels that have come after it, but you can just go into it so much. Just the whole concept. I think that how it forms, how it gets into your body, how it comes out, and how it turns into another one. It's just good sci-fi. I mean, it expands your imagination. Great plot. I saw it today actually with my wife. So it's fresh in my memory. What surprised me, though, was the fact that I didn't catch this before, but now I learned today why Sigourney Weaver was so attached to the little girl. I just realized that she woke up and her girl was had passed away at the age of 60, I believe they said. So it's a good sci-fi. It has good sci-fi plot, but it also has a human element, right? I felt her pain for not seeing her little girl, and it just hit me later that it was actually, that's why she got so attached to the little girl. But I love the plot, and back to net, KG5ZLM.
Thank you, Hector. Good comments. Let's go to the top of the RF list. NTCM, Tony, your thoughts on plot. I know you and Aaron have dissected this story. Go ahead.
Thank you. We'll probably have more to say about the characters and sound, but the plot does serve the movie very well, partly because it's so different. So many sequels try to be just like the original version of the movie, only more so. If there was one explosion, let's have 10 explosions. If there was one murder, let's have 2 murders. But yeah, Alien is a very different movie. It's all about dread. This is an action-adventure movie with some hints of dystopia. You know, this giant corporation that seems to control everything. And so it works very well. The plot does start off kind of slow, but it gives us time to become invested in the characters, in particular Ripley, who was part of an ensemble in the first movie, but now has to do more on her own and be more of a star. It rises very steadily. We get a wonderful traditional American, Hollywood ticking clock. Lots of ticking clocks at the end. We need the shuttle to come down. The reactor is going to explode. There's an alien chasing them. The plot really has a really nice introduction and builds very steadily and serves the story very well. And probably its best part is, again, the way that it's so different. I mean, for many of my friends in junior high and high school, this and Alien were our favorite movies. We actually built a game around these movies that involved, you had to wait for someone's parents to go to town on business, and we would be, using flashlights and strobe lights and cameras and toy guns and computer programs where you had to collect, secret codes. We built this whole live-action role-playing game around these two movies that we still talk about when we meet now. We had so much fun. So this was a movie I really loved, and the plot really holds up well for me. MT5TM will have lots more in future rounds.
Tony, and if I may ever be so humble, great comments as well. K5QD2, Eric and Garland, you saw this movie. What are your thoughts on the pilot? Go ahead, sir.
I have to say that this is one of those movies that really still holds up even to this day. The effects were wonderful. They were practical effects. There wasn't much in the way of CG effects at all. So even today, it still looks amazing. But this is also one of those movies. It was an action. It was a venture. It was a thriller. It was a horror flick. It's one of those great movies that will just continue to live on and on and on. And the actors and the feminism, as my wife screams from the other room, were wonderful. That's about all I've got on it. KF5QDQ.
Very good. Thanks, Eric. Look sharp. Don't stay tight. You're supposed to do that. Look sharp. Stay tight, because we're going to talk about characterization here in a few minutes. Let's see. Next up, KG5 MDS. Daryl, you saw the movie. Your comments about the plot.
I mean, this movie, every time it comes on, I've probably watched it hundreds of times because I can still just watch it and just go with it. Never, to this day, I don't think I've seen Alien singular all the way through. I've just caught bits and pieces of it, and I knew what it was about when Aliens came out, but I had never really watched it. And when Aliens came out, I watched it, and I loved it. I mean, echoing everything everyone said to this point, and then you throw in, you've got this unit of these, Space Marines. They're the bad A hombres, as Burke or whatever said, and that their interaction is not just civilians going after these creatures. You got the units there, you got the civilians, you got the young girl. I just love the movie. It's easy to follow and just enjoy. KG5 MDS, back to net.
Daryl, great comments. Next up, WB5OZL, Miss Brenda, your comments on the plot. Go ahead.
WB5OZL. I have always loved this movie. Didn't like Alien very much. But for many years, if you ask me, what is your favorite movie, I would have said Aliens. Seen it many, many times. I think the plot is just wonderful. It's very well developed. It moves along, and I think one thing is that you really care about these people. It's not just a bunch of just a military operation where, you know, you hope they live, you hope they win. But once Ripley has adopted Newt, now the stakes are really, really high. And it just makes you care even that much more. So, you know, and one of your worst nightmares is be taken over by an alien. That's such a common theme in science fiction that obviously it strikes a nerve for most of us. That being taken over by aliens has got to be like the worst thing ever. All right, I'm going to turn it back. W5OZL.
Good, thank you, Miss Brenda. This is KE5ICX. I'm net control for tonight's Afterglow Movie discussion. We're talking about Aliens from 1986. Next on the list, Miss Carolyn, KC5OZT in Louisville. You saw the movie. What did you think about the plot?
I agree with everybody else. I've always liked the movie, and especially the little girl, Newt, and how she was able to survive. And then she's not just something useless, you know, just a kid, you know. Actually helps. Knowing some of the things, you know, actually helps them out in the way Freeze, you know, loves her, and you know, it adds that to it, and the way it moves along, of course, ends with the clip. I mean, I don't know how you describe it, but the last second, you don't know it's going to end happily until the very last second, you know. But I've always liked it, KC5OZT.
Carolyn, the comments. K8AMH. Aaron, you saw the movie. What'd you think of the plot?
You know, it's been a long time since I've seen this one, and I think it's been even longer since I've seen the original Alien. But for me, I like this one more than the original, and I don't know if it's the special effects that do it, or I kind of like this story better than the original, to the point that I'm not quite sure I remember the whole original. I just remember bits and pieces, and like, yeah, really? But, you know, this one has its, of course, when you look at it after you've seen it a few times, and you're like, well, that's clearly obvious that something's up and you should leave, but you're going to keep going anyway, and all right, don't go in there, but okay. You know, but you know, that's how it goes after you've seen it a few times. It just, everything's obvious. Those little details that you're like, you know, I should have picked up on that hint type of thing. But no, the story was something that could pull you in, and you know, it's just disturbing that you'd have the whole colony, you know, subjected to that type of thing, you know. And to keep even trying to do it after it's already going on, you know, to benefit the company, or, you know, so. But, yeah, this was fun to see this again, so I look forward to the rest of the discussion. K8AMH, back to net.
Very good, Aaron. Good comments. And don't forget, our next comment round will be about characterization. So start thinking about those characters. Google if you need to. because that's coming up next. Speaking of, we are at the bottom of the list. I'll go ahead and ask if there are any additional check-ins. Please come now. We are talking about Aliens from 1986. You don't necessarily have to have seen the movie, or if it's been a while, that's okay too. We'll gladly take your check-ins. Anyone who would like to join us or is just listening in, you can do that too. Just let us know that you're listening in. You have no comments. No harm, no foul, unless you're an alien. Please come now. All right, there's one station, maybe two. I think it's just one, but we'll find out. You are barely making the repeater. It's like not good. I'll give you a few extra seconds if you can increase power or improve position, or preferably both. Try one more time, and we'll see if we can get you. Breaking station, one more time. Okay, nothing. Let's go ahead and go to the top of the list. That would be Billy, KF5PD. Oh, wait a minute. I got some comments, too. Silly me. I get to comment about this, too. Before we go to the top, let me tell you this. I enjoyed the heck out of this movie. I do like it better than Alien. Alien explored some really cool ideas having to do with the aliens and using people as hosts for really bad things that happen. The whole thought and the insidiousness of the creature and how it just totally is overwhelmed people, I thought was a great setup for what became the real movie in all this. James Cameron's idea of what Alien should have been, or his idea of what it could be, definitely pulled through on this thing, and he created this awesome motion picture. I enjoyed the heck out of it, and every time I've watched it. At 2 hours and 30 minutes, it doesn't feel like 2 hours and 30 minutes. That's the amazing thing about it. It's got everything going for it. It's got action, adventure, horror. That was mentioned by Daryl mentioned that. I thought that was cool. I like the Space Marines thing. I thought that was cool. It puts in this dramatic piece where you're invincible except you're not. That was cool. Let me reset. Tony mentioned the dystopia society and that what happens with a company or corporation gone awry. That's further explored in later movies to the greater or lesser extent, and that became the overarching theme, I think, later on. But it is brought up in this film in spades, and I think that has a lot to say about the scariness of corporations taking us to places we probably shouldn't go. So I thought that was interesting, and of course, I thought that Ripley's thought of going on this mission, I'm in, we're going to kill him, seemed a little thin for me, but we have to get her there because she was in the previous movie. Although I don't think she needed to be, in the sense of you could have had, and you had strong characters in this film. You could have brought somebody else in, completely wiped out the Ripley character to take on the aliens, and I think that would have worked just fine. But because we needed her, because of the popularity of the first film, the strength of the script and the storyline and how it paced out didn't need her. She could have been gone a long time ago. So those are my comments on plot. So let's go ahead and go to characterization. And I am going to go to Echolink, and we'll take KF5 PDS. Miss Billy, what did you think about characterization on this film?
Okay, going from memory here. So as I recall, Ripley, she is not a soldier. She is, I guess, a civilian scientist. And, of course, so you have the civilian aspect, and then you have her going, contrary to the corporation, which is male-driven. So she represents, like, the strong female voice in the film. And she's constantly having to try to win battles over different men in the corporation, I think like Paul Reiser's character. And then you have the soldier aspect and how all that is working, trying to work together. And, of course, they have differences and they clash in different ways. So there's a lot of opportunity for characters, different types of characters. Because in the first movie, to me, they were all kind of the same contingent. They were all on the same level. These characters operate on different levels, different agendas. So you hear that they're going back to exterminate them, and then you see that no, they really want to try to incubate Ripley and Newt to get them back home, and of course they don't want that. And one thing that I did read in some of the development of the film was that Cameron had the soldier, the Marine characters read Starship Troopers by Heinlein. I did not know that originally, so to me that was really interesting. And they also trained together to, have their chemistry and bond show on the screen. And so you can definitely see how the soldiers bond with one another, how they have trouble interacting with Ripley, and Ripley ends up, taking charge later. So it shows the growth in her character because she has to step up and, override what the corporation's agenda is in order to get out of there alive. And she doesn't abandon Newt. And the Newt character, that adds a whole other dimension. We have a child here, and as someone else said earlier, she's not just some useless little deadweight kid. She is savvy. She is smart. She has outwitted those aliens and has survived. And, getting her out, was a major victory. You wanted to see her survive and make it out of there. I couldn't believe Ripley went back, honestly. It's like, really? But she goes, of course they get her there and everything. I don't know that I would have liked the film as much without Sigourney Weaver's character, without Ellen Ripley. I mean, yeah, it probably might have done fine, but I think, to me, I kind of disagree. I think they did need to continue her character because she provides a common thread to me throughout the franchise. So I thought there was lots, more opportunity to explore characters, in the situations that they encountered through the action and which, drove the plot along. So that's all I can think of with regards to characters. So I'll return it to you. This is KF5 PDS, back to Matt.
This is KE5ICX, and my name's Tom. We are I am Net Control, I guess, for tonight's Skynet. We're talking about aliens from 1986. Let's go to KG5ZLM. Hector, Fort Worth, tell us about what you thought of the characterization on this film.
I really liked it. I'll keep it short. I kind of got this from Reddit, but I think when Ghostbusters came out, somebody was saying, like, if finally they put a female lead role on a sci-fi movie, and then somebody responded, I guess you haven't seen Aliens. But I think the way you do that is sometimes they hit you over the head when they're trying to say, hey, look, a female role in a role that's almost always a man. And it's just too obvious, but I think Aliens did it absolutely correct, where it's believable. You don't realize that it just seems so natural, and Ripley and Sigourney Weaver did such a good job playing that role that it's believable. She's in charge and she's commanding it. So I think that's absolutely great. I'm glad they're doing 86, even though the young crowd doesn't realize that. The other thing to finish off is based on the previous comment that they were saying that she didn't know why she would go back, and I agree, I wouldn't go back, but I think she realized that if she didn't go back, they were going to bring this thing back to Earth, and ultimately she realized that she didn't know about the plan, but she knew what the alien was, how to combat it, that she had the knowledge to go help this mission be successful, but ultimately it was a foreshadowing that people were going to bring it back on purpose. So I think that's why she went back. Anyways, KG5ZLM out.
W5EBB.
W5EBB, go ahead.
Hey, I'm sorry for the break. I've been trying to check in. I'm having radio problems, antenna problems. Whiskey 5 Echo Bravo Bravo, David in Dallas. I saw the movie.
Hi, David. Welcome to the party. Okay, I'll tell you what. Let's see here. Where are we in the list here? ZOM. I'll tell you what. Let's go. I'm going to shoehorn you in now because we're going to go to RF. And since you're late, that's okay. Here's your tardy slip. You'll have to take the principal's office. So what comments do you have? We were talking about characterization, but you were welcome to talk about plot. You said you speak, so go ahead and tell us what you think, and then I'll go to the top of the list. Go right ahead. David?
Thank you very much. So, characters, Newt, I think I lost a lot of my high-frequency hearing listening to her scream over and over and watching this movie so many times. But some of the characters that may seem like just standard character actors were actually not. The sergeant, with the colorful metaphors straight out of the military, actually won 2 Purple Hearts in Vietnam. So he was actually a war hero, not just a character actor. Now, of course, the Paxton character was beloved by most people, and he had some excellent one-liners that I still use today. Game over, man. Why don't you put her in charge? I mean, really, really great, memorable lines. And that's all for now. W5EBB.
All right, thanks, David. I think I doubled with you on a couple of parts, but you got the characterization stuff in. Did you have anything? I may have missed it because I was talking at the same time. On plot that you wanted to bring us? Go ahead.
Well, I'll just offer an alternative devil's advocate kind of a comment about the plot. And actually, this echoes Gene Siskel from the Chicago Tribune, who was one of the few movie critics who did not like this movie. Me out of the fan club on this one. Toward the end, the film resorts to placing a young girl in jeopardy to pander to who knows what audience. Some people have praised the technical excellence. Well, the Eiffel Tower is technically impressive, but I wouldn't want to watch it fall apart on people for 2 hours. But, that is a movie trope that was a pet peeve of Gene Siskel. Placing women or children, young people in jeopardy, just sort of panders to the emotions, and, it's just not something that is like a veto vote for him on a lot of movies that otherwise were very good. W5EBB.
Thank you, David, and I've got an asterisk after your name because I have some comments on that. NT5TM, Tony, characterization. What do you and Aaron think about it?
This is the part that we can hardly stop talking about, because of course we're people and we're selfish. We want to really love Ripley and it's very common, and I know film critics wrote about this at the time, that in a modern action movie, when they say strong female character, what they generally mean is a strong female character in spandex with a large chest. They have to play to the male gaze, and they also have to appeal to male stereotypes as they're in ads and be macho, in addition to being female. The movie did not make anyone play to that. Vasquez is a soldier who banters with the other soldiers, and she's good at her job, but it's not especially important that she looks like Laura Croft. Ripley is her own character. She is strong and powerful. She's afflicted with PTSD. She's very human, very fully realized for an action character, and we don't see her in a bikini. She's in her underwear when she's about to go to bed and hypersleep, but that's just incidental. That's, I would have taken off my clothes there too. So, she's just a character. So points for the, being many years of unusual nature. I don't know if an action science fiction movie has come close to female characters like that since. It's been a long wait, but Aliens is still out there standing up. Did a great job even characterizing the alien clone. I was the Grinch when we talked about Arrival. I really did not like that movie. I thought they made the communication with the aliens too simple and too verbal. But here in this movie, they even Ripley has to work out a deal. Until that egg opens, I won't burn your babies if you don't eat newt. They even work out something with nonverbal communication, which is the foundation of how we have to work with non-human species like birds and reptiles and whatnot. Sometimes it works better than others. But they even managed to characterize the alien queen a little bit, and yay, points for that. Of course the alien wants revenge. Ripley incinerated all of her babies. She's very upset. I'd be upset. Don't incinerate my family. Incinerating people I know. The Space Marine. Hand came off the push-to-talk switch. The Space Marines have a very natural banter. This movie has more one-liners than almost any other science fiction movie I know of, but they all seem natural. You picture people being able to say these things. Actress who played Newt is very weak. I often think that about child actors. Acting is really, really, really hard. I don't have the slightest clue how to do it, and yet I'm good at a lot of other things, so I think acting must be really hard. And it takes a long time to learn, and so children are often, just as they are not good at other careers, not good at this because they haven't had the experience. But Erin Van Counter argued that, they still gave her character good hints of characterization, like when she complained about her brother calling her Rebecca and not Newt. Finally, I know I've been talking a long time, this is MT5TM. Erin really, really liked the just dripping with slime characterization of Paul Reiser's character of Carter. The alien couldn't really have eaten your crew. He's just so slimy. He's so dismissive. He's so... Before her hypersleep, she was older than he was, and he keeps calling her kiddo. He's just dripping with patronizingness. And finally, a good note that we both liked, and Aaron commented on it first, was when Bishop tries to put Ripley, Sigourney Weaver, at ease. Oh, of course, this was the older model. It was one of those older androids running Windows XP that malfunctioned and helped kill you all. I thought that was just funny because, of course, I always bash older technology, and Aaron thought it was a great piece of character. So I know I've talked a long time. Thank you very much. But the characters are always what gets me going about a good movie. And there are characters in here that, were they real, I would be very pleased to know. NT5TM.
No, Tony, I agree. I love your analysis, you and Aaron's analysis of characterization. You always pull things out that I didn't see. So let's go on. KF5QDQ, Eric, characterizations. Top that. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, but I don't think I can actually top any of that. All the talking points have been stated, and there's not really much to say. The characters were well written. Of course, you would expect that coming from a Cameron movie. But, my goodness, you had real veterans doing real veteran stuff with the Space Marines. Sergeant Al, he was a Vietnam vet. You had the entire Space Marine Corps that had trained together with real-world weapons and everything so they could get into the groove before they even shot the movie. It was wonderful. And with Ripley and Newt and Bishop, I mean, heck, Bishop was pretty much the start for Data on Star Trek The Next Generation. Hey, we've got an android. He looks human. Let's make him superhuman with some of his skills, and boom, bang, there you go. I got nothing else, KF5QDQ.
All right, thank you, Eric. No, I think you brought it into focus. Those are all great comments, and you're a guy who knows. So thank you for your comments on that. Let's see, TG5 MDS Daryl, your comments on characterization. Go ahead.
Well, I'm going to stick with the Marines on the comments on my characterization. I mean, you just see the entire unit as believable. I mean, they all got their own little, idiosyncrasies and stuff, and it's here you are, sometime in the future or something, but they're still so, believable to this point. I mean, Hudson, as someone said, oh, game over, and I think another time he says something like, man, I just had a few more months, or something like that. And the sergeant, yeah, he's just the gritty, tough sergeant. Vasquez, it's like she doesn't even care what's going on, who wants to do what, she just wants to shoot people up. She wants to kick butt and take names, and all of that is just so believable. Even the lieutenant's young and experienced, and he wants to do well, but it's like you can see him thinking when he's trying to make his decisions, like, oh, am I making the right decision, and then the pilot, I don't remember her name, but she's just the cool, calm, and collected pilot, just doing her thing and stuff. And then, of course, I think my favorite part, I don't remember if it's Hicks who has the shotgun. I think it is where he whips it out. He says, I like to keep this for, emergencies or up close and personal encounters or something. And then when they're on the drop ship and, they're encountering turbulence and all that stuff, and it's like, somebody wake up Hicks. They're all just so believable to me. I could just see a unit of Marines doing that somewhere. KG5 MDS, back to that.
Daryl, great comments. WB5OZL, Miss Brenda, characterization, you're on.
WB5OZL. I'm fascinated with how much people quote these characters. I do myself. And we do it in Paxton's voice. And everybody understands when you do the movie quotes. I think that might be a yardstick for how enduring a movie is how much we quote from it and what we and how engaged we are in the characters. There's some real unforgettable characters in this movie, and seriously distinct personalities. I love Ripley. She is every woman, you know, just a very ordinary person to start with. And she rises to pretty heroic levels because she has to, which is a common story for in war and for men. You know, it's like I've got this challenge and I'm going to have to rise to it. And so she does, and she's really put down and treated, you know, patted on the head and treated like, oh, you're just a girl, for quite a bit. Paul Reiser's character is so slimy. I mean, he drips slime worse than the alien does. But what's interesting is he represents the evil part of humans. Ripley says to him, you know, at least this alien is not selling out her own kind for a percentage. So you just ask yourself, who is the real villain here? Okay, back to net, W5OZL.
All right, thank you, Miss Brenda. Next up, KC5OZT, Miss Carolyn. Your characterization, go ahead.
I like, of course, Ripley being, you might say, the hero of the... But there's one thing I haven't really heard anybody mention, but, you know, she was afraid of the android on their first ship. And yet, she's afraid, sort of, of Bishop, you know, and cautious about him, you know, and yet you come to see him, of course he's an android, but, you know, volunteering, you can't say risking his life, but risking himself to try to save him, you know, and then he does, you know, once he gets back to the ship, you know, and then another interesting character, you might say, they instead of having like so many movies for the aliens, you know, little green men, or you know, so to speak. They've got these insect, I forget now the exact title, but you know, that sort of, and yet, the insect or the queen, you know, you can detect that she really has feelings, all right, of her own kind, and you sort of wonder maybe if on their own planet they're nice. You hate to say nice people, but you know what I mean. But you know, it's just sort of an underlying feeling that you get from that. KC5OZT.
Carolyn, and you brought a very good point up, and I have an asterisk next to your name on one of your comments, so I agree. This is KE5ICX. I'm net control for tonight's Afterglow Movie Net. We are talking about the movie Aliens from 1986. Aliens. Plural. So let me go down to the down the list here, and then I'll take additional check-ins. K8AMH, Aaron, over in Louisville. What are your thoughts on characterization?
A couple of short things. So first one is when Newt is introduced into the story, the way that she just doesn't talk and doesn't talk and doesn't talk and has the blank stare and then finally starts talking only when she hears her name. For me, it really makes me think about just what all has she seen and experienced. I know she's lost her family, but just what all has she seen and experienced in all that time. And then the other thing I'll mention is that Ripley was floating through space for 57 years. She looks amazing. K8AMH, back to Ned.
I got to hit the foot pedal correctly. Thanks, Aaron. Good comments. Let me do this, and before I comment, because I have asterisks everywhere. Additional check-ins. Anyone who would like to join us this evening? We're talking about aliens from 1986. The plural, not the singular. Anyone else want to join us? And I'll put you on the list. Please come now.
Just wanted to let you know I've been listening in. K5, JDW.
John, thanks. Check you in. You got any comments? If you don't, that's okay too.
Look at this, sir. I've seen maybe about 10 minutes of this movie. Unfortunately, it was the part, I guess, where the alien has got his teeth and his dripping mouth or whatever up against somebody, and I remember the effects being so realistic, you could almost feel that creature breathing on you. And if I'm talking about the right movie, that's all I remember from it. K5, JDW.
Okay, John, that's okay. That could be either alien, singular, or aliens, which is plural. And was another movie, too, which I've never seen. But, yeah, very good. Well, let me see. My comments on this thing was, there were twofold. Thanks to everybody here who's made comments. It's really fun because then I can pick and choose those points and say, I agree, and hold my hand up in the air and say, I agree. I've thought of that all along. So, no, not necessarily I thought about this all along. In fact, some folks illuminated some really good points. One of them I thought was interesting to me was when they took Ripley and they were in the room there doing the review as to whether she could have her license or not, or intergalactic, interstellar, whatever the heck it was she had. Her pilot's license was revoked. It was a room full of guys all smoking. There weren't any women that I saw in there. And, wow, that sounds about right. She's crazy. Let's make her look like she's crazy. She's a woman. You should be at home baking cakes. That was the idea. In 1986, and unfortunately in 2018, that's sort of the idea. That's as far as political I will get, but seems to be resurfacing, in my opinion. It looked extremely bad. And, of course, you're nuts, so we know what's best, to pat her on the head and send her on her way. Well, that changed quickly when suddenly they needed her expertise, and then suddenly we're putting her on a spaceship and sending her directly into the field of battle. So that kind of made sense in a reality sort of way. There was another comment in here talking about the realism, the fact that people never change, and in some ways, you know, some of the more comments from the Marines and all that, they seem very real. Of course they do. They're constantly in danger. There's things going on. Things could go wrong. And they make light of it because what else are you going to do? Gallows humor. I don't think that's ever going to change in any situation. And they seemed very realistic and they acted naturally. That was a strong point in this movie, I thought. Lastly, my comments, and I'm stealing and cribbing off of other people, is Mom was mad. Mom was mad. The queen creature was there, laying her eggs, minding her own business. The eggs went off and ate and had square meals. Unfortunately, it was the colony that was done, but that's the way it worked. What was the thing from Dr. Killed there? Man, woman, life, death, infinity. And then they shoved the thing through the door and did that really cool Jerry Goldsmith score. But I digress. That's essentially what it is. And she's living out what she's supposed to do. And then suddenly we're wiping out her babies and the eggs and everything. And she's mad. She gets on an elevator. She gets on a spaceship. She kicks butt and doesn't even take names. So, yeah, this movie works on several levels. Characterization works even for the alien. So I'm going to stop now. KE5 ICX net control for tonight's Afterglow Movie Net. All right, we're going to go to, let's see, what time is it? It's 11:43. We're getting late. I'm going to go ahead and open it up to conversation because it's that time. We'll talk about the technical aspects or any aspect of this movie. If you would like to make comments about technical aspects or any aspect of this film, please come now with your call sign.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
EBB.
I believe there was doubles in there. I've got NT5TM and W5EBB. Anyone else? Please come now.
Kilo Golf 5, Mike Delta Sierra.
And let me go ahead and recognize those NT5TM, W5EBB, and KG5MDS. Let's start at the top. Tony, go ahead. Your comments.
I've got a few things, and none of them are too well related. Carolyn, I really enjoyed your comment about the aliens not being humanoid, not being, green men or whatnot. I'm heartily sick of that kind of alien in science fiction, so I'm always happy to see genuinely alien aliens. I really liked the sound design. I read online this week that the composer was very unhappy. He was working under very tight time pressure. But there are times when the sound just stops, and that really adds to the tension because there's no music. There are times when the music is blaring. There's a constant presence of ticking and pulsing noises, alarms, beepers, the ticking of the motion detectors. There's a ticking clock to an enormous percentage of this movie, and the sound design makes that ticking clock very obvious. It's a neat touch to find excuses to keep the going. Read a lot of military history, and I loved the way I thought it was so realistic that their plan completely falls apart the first time they venture into the air processing plant and encounter the aliens underground. Use suppressing fighter, fall back by squads to the APC, regroup, perform procedure X72. Plans often don't survive contact with reality. In movies, they often work too well. I liked how things fell apart. When I first met, we had a conversation about art in which she talked about how art often comes from constraint. If you let an artist do whatever they want, they tend to drink absinthe, I guess that's a good artsy beverage, or tea, or some illegal drug, and they lay around all day, and they write bad songs, and they don't do much. Artists have to be disturbed or constrained to make them produce. You can't let them write whatever poem they want. You have to make them turn out a sonnet. And this movie had a really surprisingly low budget for what it was, and I think that really helped. If you give James Cameron too much money, you get full-scale props and not necessarily as good of a story, although he still does well. The constraint, whether it was the time to do the editing or the time to do the music or the relatively low budget, I think really contributed to making this a better movie, one that we're all still talking about. If you can't have Michael... This HT has a 1-minute timeout. If you can't do Michael Bay's explosions, you have to have better characters, you have to have better music. If you can't have every effect you want, you have to pick the most important effects. I think as long as it's not too low, as long as you don't get crap, like some movies we've talked about, the right amount of constraint is really important to good art. NT5TM. Thank you very much.
Tony, and there's a whole bunch we could say about that. I'm not going to right now, but I agree with you wholeheartedly. You need a little pain, you need a little bit of hunger in order to create something really good. W5EBB, David, go ahead, your comments.
I begged and begged for my mom to take me to see rated R Aliens when I was a kid, and it scared the newt out of me. I saw Aliens in college between classes at a matinee, and I was sure not to eat beforehand, although it wasn't as bad as I thought as Alien in terms of the intensity. Alien is much more of a horror movie, very claustrophobic, very eerie and unsettling, and Aliens is much more in the action genre, both good in their own different ways. The special effects in Aliens, with an S, there wasn't a lot of CGI, if any, but one of my pet peeves, having worked in a flight simulation lab, is when aircraft or spacecraft don't move realistically according to the forces of thrust, lift, weight, well, not spacecraft, drag, well, not spacecraft, particularly the drop ship in the atmosphere, in the ascent and descent, it just didn't look right. It was like they just moved the ship across a background in whatever arbitrary way they wanted. Now, the model designs, James Cameron rejected almost all of the initial designs from the art department for the Aliens and for vehicles in favor of his own. And he's very talented in doing that, but there are certain design motifs that he likes, and he presses for those. And you see some of the same designs, like the dropship, you also see in Terminator 2, I guess, and the power loader you also see in Avatar. So there's kind of some repetition there. The Queen Alien, in an interview, Cameron said, well, amazingly, the initial sketch that I did was pretty close to how it actually turned out. Go figure. And finally, someone's comment about, one of their own species doesn't sell out the other for a percentage. Well, the aliens are a belligerent species, aggressive. They view offers of compromise as a weakness to exploit, as Ripley quickly realized when she tried to reach a bargain with the Queen. There's no need to compromise in their mind, I guess, and their capability to perform destruction is magnified when you've got sellouts on the other side, helping their belligerent cause. And in the initial scene where the Marines get wiped out, you know, they're in the cooling tower where they can't, below which they can't use their weapons, and that is not the inside of a loop that I would want to be confined to. W5EBB.
Hi, Daryl. I'm sorry. EBB. Oh my goodness, I'm starting to lose. It's been a long day. All right, thanks for your comments. I do appreciate them very much, David. Let's go to now KG5MDS. That's Daryl. I'll get everybody's name right, or I'll be a host for one of those chest burster people. Go ahead, Daryl. Your comments.
Well, it could be my other brother, Daryl, but the one thing that bothers me in the movie, it's minor. It's not anything major, but in the end, when Ripley's in her Caterpillar hydraulic loader suit battling the Queen Bee alien, and she opens up remotely the airlock, she opens up the top level, they battle, they fall in, she starts crawling out of her loader, and the alien grabs her, and she's in the airlock. She attaches her arm, wraps her arm around the ladder, and she opens the airlock, sucks the alien out, okay? And then she proceeds to climb up the ladder and barely, you know, gets in or gets on top of the deck and closes the top airlock, and just, you know, clears her leg or her arm out before it closes all the way. Why didn't she just close the bottom of the airlock when she was on the ladder? And that's my comment, KG5MDS.
Very good comments, Daryl. I absolutely agree with you. It's one of those moments where you go, I don't know what's going on here. And from a technical standpoint, I will make my comments here, and then I'll give another round. But first off, technically, the special effects were great. I thought they did an excellent job. Of course, Cameron has a very photogenic eye, and you know, I think who is it? Ridley Scott did the first film. I mean, these two guys are legendary in being able to take and capture visually on film things that make the film intriguing, interesting, and memorable, which is exactly what Alien and Aliens is. They present to you different images of this, different ideas about the same image. The closest I've seen, and not a very good job of it, by the way, was 2001: A Space Odyssey in 2010, or 2010, the year we made contact. Two completely different films using a common framework. This film actually works better because it makes the first film legitimate and scary by the fact the second film is so overwhelming, but the people in it are so cocky, they think, okay, we're just walking in, we already know what we're walking into, but they don't. They don't. Colonization of anything suggests that that's not possible. Lord Kitchener found that out in World War I. He thought he could control the Arabs and ended up being wiped out. George Armstrong Custer, another, he was going to make things happen, and in the end he could not. Your projection of ego doesn't work in the end in a lot of stories. And I think this is an example of that to a certain degree. Projection of ego, and then finding out the realization. Characters are human. The whole idea is absurd, but it is realistic and human. I think this film resonates on so many different levels in that regard. You don't know what you're walking into. There have been plenty of other examples of that in film and in history where hubris takes over, and then all of a sudden you find out that's not going to work. And you still like the characters, and you feel for them. And when they go, you could have made this better. But that's exactly what we all go through. We find out that we make mistakes along the way, and we change and adapt in the process. So I agree with everybody. I think this is a fabulous film, but I think it works and draws upon the strengths of the first film, although you don't necessarily need to see that. Let me reset. I think the film provides an addition and a diversion or a movement away from the original ideas in the sense that it offers up a whole new perspective along the way. And I agree, I read somewhere and I read it tonight that, this thing could be the best sequel film ever made. I think it could be. I really think it could be, because you take the ideas of the first film and you go crazy with them without having, like Tony says, you don't have to make 10 of the same thing in order to make it good. What you do is you take one of something and you make it completely different with the same set of circumstances, and you go, I'm watching it over here. And you know what? It's completely different. I see a different point of view. And I think that's, in my estimation, what makes this film so good. Okay, this is KE5 ICX. Final round. Any additional comments before I tell you what's next on the hit parade? Please come now.
Number 5, Tango Mike.
EBB.
I have NT5TM Tony, and then I got W5EBB. Anyone else? All right, NT5TM Tony, you're up. Go ahead.
You would like to see some of these actors working together again in a off Broadway, non-Hollywood, non-union project. Track down the vampire movie Near Dark. Near Dark. You get to see several of these folks in a very different way as vampires. NT5TM.
All right, Tony, thanks. We will look into that. Near Dark. I have it asterisked here, and I will look into it. Let's see. W5EBB, David, you had final comments. Go ahead.
So both the Queen Alien and Ripley both share the common trait of being like a mama bear and someone gets caught between her and her cub. Very, very defensive, very instinctive in their reaction. But with great subtlety, the character Hicks also naturally falls into a paternal role. You see it, for example, when he lifts Newt onto the display screen, the surface where they have the blueprints shown. And he and Ripley kind of become a mother-father, and with Newt become a family, and that is ultimately the natural, process that saves the day, and they work together as a unit. And I just wanted to kind of draw that parallel in as well as to add to what was discussed earlier. W5EBB.
Excellent comments, and I agree with you. that was interesting, and I'm glad you brought that out. Is one of the things I think that's really interesting about film, or even literary stories, is that you go by demonstration. You suggest one thing in a storyline, a parallelism, let's say, and then it results in some other dramatically different situation where that parallelism is reflected. And I think that in this case, you've got the alien mother showing her love, or her whole, reason for existence, and you've also got the child, Newt, being involved in this as well. It's crazy. It's opposite ends of the scale, but it's still the same thing of sorts, which is really kind of weird and strange in some ways. At least that's what I got out of it, to a certain extent. I hope I didn't screw up your comment in that way, but to me, I see that a lot in film. That there's a demonstration of one thing and then it's repeated or otherwise changed, or the point of view is completely brought out as different. Okay, this is the longest Afterglow movie net we've ever had. I'll ask for any final check-ins or comments come now, and this is last call. Please come out.
F5 PDS.
All right, KF5PDS. I'm sorry, we probably quick keyed you to death. Please go ahead with your comments, Miss Billy. KF5PDS from KE5ICX.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, I tried to get in just a little bit ago, but yeah, I got a little quick keyed there. Yeah, I just wanted to add that we haven't really talked about the human-android relationship, which is a very interesting one, and I think it is very well expounded upon in the prequel Prometheus. We should really watch Prometheus, because you have in the first film, you have Ripley and Ash. Ash was the antagonist, and it made Ripley very distrusting of the androids. And so when she encounters Bishop in this movie, which I love the whole knife trick thing, that was just incredible special effect. And it may have just been like sped up film, but it looked really, really terrifying when he was doing the knife thing with the hand. But it turns out that, she's very distrusting of the androids, but he helps her. He is, very kind of misunderstood. But I love in Prometheus, if we watch that one, the human-android relationship in that film, and I won't expound upon it because I would love for us to watch that one. So that is a recommendation. I recommend that we watch Prometheus. So with that, I'll return it to you. This is KF5PDS. Been a great net tonight.
All right, thank you, Miss Billy. I have Astronomicus, and I will put in the movie list Prometheus, and Tony put in Near Dark. So I have those both Astronomicus for future reference. So I'll check it out in the morning, see if I can find links or otherwise ways of seeing the film. Appreciate it. Any final comments before we close it up? Very good. I don't know how many people we had checked in. Let me count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 check-ins this evening. 11 check-ins, and I bet you a bunch of other people listening in. Thanks for all who joined us this evening. Next week's movie, and I want to bring a couple of things up. One is, I think Billy may have mentioned this one. It's on the list. Chappie from 2015, talking about movies with robots in them from earlier, I guess. That's over on Netflix. I don't know if there's any other links anywhere, but Chappie will be our next film next week. And then I'd like you to think about on the 27th, a field trip to go see Solo, a Star Wars story, on Sunday, perhaps, maybe a 2 o'clock performance. I didn't have any additional information at this point, but it's coming out, Solo, a Star Wars story. And then we'll talk about it on June 2nd. So that's still up in the air, but if you're interested, we can go ahead and do that. We can even talk about it after this net. At any rate, I want to thank everybody who had checked in. Again, if you're on Facebook, you can go to Afterglow Movie. That's 2 words, Afterglow, and then Movie. Say you'd like to check in, and I'll give you the links and all that stuff. If you're not a fan of Facebook, you can go ahead and send an email to me, KE5ICX, Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray, at yahoo.com, and say, I'm in. And I'll put you on the list with links and information about the movies that we see. So until next time, this is KE5ICX. I'm going to say 7-3. Thanks, everybody, for joining us this evening. This was really a good net, and it does break the record. We're at 98 minutes, which is the longest net we've ever had. 7-3, have a good evening. See you next week. KE5ICX, I'm clear.
Everyone, I'm wiring up some bathroom lights, and it made the job a lot easier. Appreciate it. Maybe I can talk for 2 minutes to make it an even 100. Good night, everybody. K5 JDW.
John, are you still alternating between Norman and here in Dallas? KE5ICX.
Yes, sir, every 2 weeks, and I try to flip it around a little bit, but the months, they keep, the number of weeks keeps changing. It keeps messing up my schedule, and I can't tell you how many people I have to notify of my schedule. There's only 2 of us, so we have to take every other week. And, I have to let the hospital know, the administration know, the switchboard know, my people know, like, geez, can't tell me how people, and I got to, clear it with the guy I'm working with as well, and my boss, so, it's really hard to change it, so I do every 2 weeks, and, I'm trying to get some Skywarn weekends in there, keep screwing those up, and when I do get the Skywarn weekends, then I miss the lab, so that's the way it is.
All right, well, I was curious about that, and I'm going to tell everybody shout it from the mountaintop, you were a guy that showed up, and you hit every single meeting of the Dallas Amateur Radio Clubs as an officer for 3 years, even though you spent half or more of your time up in Oklahoma, and I appreciated it when I was prez, and I found that just freaking amazing on your part that you could do that. Now I have a job where I'm home every night. I still have the company car, which is crazy. I think they aren't I'm not relinquishing the car because there may be something where I have to go somewhere or do something. My boss in my new job is the same as my boss in the old job, so I think he's hedging his bet. But at any rate, thought I'd mention that in the whole scheme of things. But thanks for checking in tonight, and don't forget, next week, Chappie, KE5ICX.
Okay, Tom, no need to mention that, but, I appreciate it. It's because you're a president, man, that's why. No. If you want to use that for inspirational purposes, get all the mileage out of it you can. I don't need it for bragging rights or anything, but basically the thing is, it's because I signed up for it. I assumed, to me it was a commitment, so I was, I'm expected to follow through, that was the deal. So, yeah, until the last minute, man. And so, but in some cases it wasn't easy because I can't tell you how many people hit me with something at about 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and there were some times when I flew out of that place and barely made it to the meeting in time.
Tell you what, it's late at night. Nobody's listening. Nobody's listening, right? I'm gonna whisper this. It's appreciated. It's appreciated the fact that you were able to do that. I've had to, do something along those lines, but I couldn't make the perfect record like you did, and that goes above and beyond the whole deal. So, thanks very much, and thanks for checking in tonight. I'll stop now, but have a good evening. I'm going to transition and watch The Night Stalker. So, 7-3. Have a good evening. Thanks very much, John. This is KE5ICX, and I really am clear now. 7-3.
Always a Dr. Fraser Crane out there. I'm listening. W5EBB. Thanks to both of you guys. W5EBB.